I'd like to call the OnPoint Board of Directors meeting to order for September 17th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll take attendance at this time. Kimberly Bartnick.
Here.
Pam Brenner has an excused absence. Glenn Brookhouse.
Yes, here.
Jessica Castaneda has an excused absence. She's at a wedding. Mark Dion here. Gail Dugan is here. Jane Farrell.
Here.
Beth Johnson.
Here.
Alice Kelsey.
Here.
Dr. Robin Clay has an excused absence. Karen Stratton.
Here.
And Pastor Greg Van Beek has an excused absence. With that, we now have a provision for public comment. The agenda items only, 5 minutes limit per speaker. If you would like to be acknowledged, please raise your hand, come forward and address the board. Is there anyone in the boardroom at this time that would like to address the board? Second call. Mrs. Hamilton, is there anyone online that would like to address the board?
Does anyone online want to address the board? Nope.
All right, I will close the provision for public comment at this time. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Before we approve that, we have one additional item under 9D, a motion to approve the FY 2025 budget. That should be right under the 2025 contracts. With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Johnson. Do I hear support by Kimberly? I will do a roll call on this. Kimberly,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Gail says yes. Jane,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
that stands approved. Consent agenda is the next on the agenda. Is there any piece of the consent agenda that anyone would like to remove from that? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Move to approve.
Motion by Karen. Support by Glenn. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Motion carries. We now are at the program committee report. Chairman Kelsey.
Yes. We had a very interesting program presentation by several people. The first was with Amy Kettering, who is the director of the provider network. And she brought with her two of her people on her staff, Mallory and Ashley. And there was a whole section on self-determination and that whole process. And I learned the new term, financial management service. And we have, the one that we use is called GT. And that was quite a, kind of an elaborate program that I think is also very innovative and very progressive. And, they said to me, I mean, it sounded very confusing to me, but they said, no, it works. So it's like, okay, that sounded good. And then, we also, they gave us a little update too about the electronic visit verification program that, or an app basically that they now, a certain number of our staff have to do, when they do certain types of, provide certain types of services. And, that was also very interesting. And then Matt gave us just a written report of, all the innovation. And, he mentioned too that they are getting ready for the MDHS, the waiver site review, and that he felt comfortable that that was, gonna be ready for that. And then Janine gave us just a brief update about kind of how are things going, with with this gap of leadership that we've got going on right now. And it sounded like the sort of temporary things that we have put in place are continuing to work. And I think will be great until, we are able to hire a COO.
Right.
Anything big that I missed of that? Okay.
With that, is there any other questions for Mrs. Kelty at this time? Hearing none, thank you very much for your program report tonight, Alice. We have scheduled at 5:45 a public hearing on the proposed FY 2025 OnPoint budget. At this time, I will read or Ms. Hamilton, did you want to read the publication of that public notice, or do you want me to?
You can, that's fine.
Okay, do you have a copy of it?
Yep. Yeah.
We'll have to read off the screen. I've got it for you here otherwise.
Thank you. This is an annual occurrence that OnPoint goes through. And this is the notice of public hearing, the OnPoint 2024-2025 operating budget. The OnPoint Board of Directors will hold a public hearing on the OnPoint's proposed 2024-2025 operating budget on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024 at, this says 5:30, but that's 5:45 at 540 Jenner Drive, Allegan, Michigan, 49010 in our public boardroom. The proposed budget will be available for inspection at the OnPoint's office at 540 Jenner Drive, Allegan, Michigan, 49010, no later than September 6, 2024, during regular business hours, as well as on our website at https://onpointallegan.org/board-center/. Anyone listening to speak to the board about the proposed budget may appear at the September 17th meeting or direct written comments to the chairperson, Gail Dugan, 540 Jenner Drive, Allegan, Michigan, 49010. Written comments received prior to the meeting will be read into the record of the meeting. And that is the extent of the public hearing. Alice, would you be so kind? And at this point in time, was there any written comments received for me to read into the record?
Don't believe so, Mr. Chairman.
I did not receive any. Andre, did you receive any?
Okay. Being that the public notice was at 5:30 and we have it on our list at 5:45, we're going to split the difference and start the public hearing. At this time, I call the public hearing into order. Is there anyone of the public that would like to address the board on the proposed fiscal year 2024, 2025 budget for OnPoint. Second call. Third call. Mrs. Hamilton, is there anyone online?
Is there anyone online that would like to address the board regarding the OnPoint fiscal year 2025 budget? No.
Thank you. Is there any board comments at this time? Okay, I do have one comment. It was very well planned and looked at all the parameters that we are working under and the economic factors that we find ourselves on today and anticipate finding ourselves in the next year. We have tried to conservatively plan for those and take into account any inevitabilities that we might foresee. But we can always go and change or move or dance which way ever the situation changes. With that, is there any further comments? Hearing none. Close the public hearing on the proposed budget. Finance Committee report, Chairman Johnson.
Okay, this past month, Andre has been working on updating and putting all the laptops on a rotating basis, starting with a 5-year rotation, so they're cleaning that up as they go. But the clinicians get touch screen so people can sign and swipe and stuff. And as a teacher, I love that idea that the people with the people are getting a little extra there because it does make the work go easier. The generator out back is almost going to have a test tomorrow, a load test tomorrow. So those are the big items from there. I'm going to run through the finances for this month. We'll do the motions and then do all the motions. If you have any questions for Andre after the motions, just so everybody knows where I'm going with this. With that said, on page 20, well, let's start on page 21. It's basically the balance sheet through the end of July 31st of this year. The nice part is that we still hear from Andre and the committee that it looks good, just like last month. So we're steady as she goes, I guess. A couple of things to point out on page 21. From September 23, the cash and cash equivalents were up at the end of July to about 5.2 million. That's due to the CCBHC volume and the Medicaid capitation. The money under due from other governmental units, it went from 1.1 up to about 2.2. That's because the LRE made a payment to us. Let's see what else is there. Down in liabilities, accrued payroll and benefits. It went from 314 up to 699 there. That's because of a July 5th. It was a full accrued payment that we had to catch up for the month. Due to other governmental units, that 2.7 million, that's what we're gonna have to pay back to the LRE. And then the part of it, a smaller part of it is to the general fund, going back to the state. But the good news is down on the bottom for the unrestricted net position is at 1.6 million. So any questions on that? Moving on to the next page, on page 22. This is the expense report. Up on the top left, the percentage of the year that has passed us at this point is 83.33%. And so I have you look over to the far right column, and under grants and earned contracts, we're kind of down at 52%. We haven't been able to actualize those revenues from the grants because we haven't had the correct staffing to do the activities yet, but hopefully that will change too. Supplies and materials down on the expense side, down at 53, that's kind of a real low one. That's because some of those supplies have yet to be purchased, so we can't put them on there. Overall, at the end of July, at the very bottom, we're at 5.2 million roughly. So, any questions? All right. That's the financials. Back on page 11 is our first motion that we have. And it's just the payments, the disbursements for August. And I move that the OnPoint board approve the August 2024 disbursements totaling $3,836,016.11.
That is a motion by Mrs. Johnson. Is there support for that motion?
Support.
Support by Kimberly. This will be a roll call. Mark DeYoung,
Yes.
Ben Brookhouse,
Yes.
Kimberly Bartlett,
Yes.
Karen Stratton,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Jane Farrell,
Yes.
and I say yes. That motion carries. Continue, please.
Okay, on page 12, this is a contract, a provider's contract for this year, fiscal year 2024. So the rest of this month, basically. And I move that the OnPoint board approve the following list of provider contracts for fiscal year 2024. And it's for the provider of Grand Rapids LGBTQ plus healthcare.
Do I have support for that motion?
Support.
Support by Jane. Is there any further discussion on that motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Alice?
is this a new provider? Or is this a renewal of a current contract?
This is a one-time, provider, is a presenter of a program for surname and,
It's pronoun.
pronouns and surnames, and having conscientious of affinity towards how a person wants to be addressed. And so this is a one-time deal. We had discussion in finance as to getting feedback from the people that attend that to see how we could better do that. Is it something that we should continue, but it is a one-time contract.
This will be for staff training.
Yes.
Yep.
Is there any further things that I did cover there, Mr. Whitty?
Oh, just doing a 1 hour training the morning of September 23 for our staff, so $200.
I would just like to add that as a teacher dealing with students all the time, or just, public in general, the teachers value having something similar that we have had done at our school. Because when you're talking to a student and they're struggling with identity and they say that it's a his, he, or a she, her thing, you don't want them to feel any more awkward. And so Mark brought up the word sensitivity, and I think that's a very good word, because the last thing you want is to make somebody else life more difficult. So that's kind of the gist of it.
Okay. Is there any further questions or discussion on this particular contract? Hearing none, I will take a roll call, vote on this. Jane Farrell,
Yes.
Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Karen Stratton,
Yes.
Kimberly Barton,
Yes.
Glenn Brookhouse,
Yes.
Mark DeYoung,
Yes.
and I say yes. Motion carries.
Okay, on to page 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. These are all the contracts for fiscal year 2025, starting October 1st. So we have to approve these so we can continue using these contracts. Or providers, I should say. They don't necessarily have a current contract. So I move that the OnPoint board approve the following list of provider contracts for fiscal year 2025.
Is there a support for that motion? Support. Support by Glenn Brookhouse. Further discussion on the contracts for 2025. Hearing none. This will be a roll call vote again. Gail Dugan says yes. Jane Farrell,
Yes.
Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Karen Stratton,
Yes.
Kimberly Bartlett,
Yes.
Glenn Brookhouse,
Yes.
and Mark DeYoung.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Okay. Moving back to page 4 and 5, jumping around a little bit. Just as a reference, this is the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025. It's what we just had that little extra meeting in the middle for. And I recommend that the OnPoint board approve the fiscal year 2025 budget with expenditures totaling $45,281,759. Did I say that right? 45?
Yes, you did.
Yep, okay.
Do I hear support for that motion?
Or,
Was that Alice or Karen? Okay. Is there any other questions on the budget? Yes, Mrs. Johnson.
I'd like Andre just to come up for a second. Yeah, you have to do it. I don't see anybody behind you.
What in particular would you like him to address, Mrs. Johnson?
Well, I would just like him to explain to the board about how, even though the revenue is kind of flatlining, but because of our capacity to do more and to increase our FTEs, we're going to have an okay steady year. Unless I said that enough. What?
You tell me.
I believe that she would like you to
I'm
explain.
good with it. I'm good with that. Okay, so what we presented to you is this budget, and we're asking for approval of the budget of $45 million. What's reflected in that budget is an increase of FTEs of roughly 12 FTEs to help us to expand CCBHC services. In correlation with those additional FTEs, okay, we also increased the revenue to offset that. But what also I want to comment, built into this is an increase in provider rates, because they're going to be going up. Right, and also we've included the 20 cents per hour for the direct care worker wages that were mandated to by the state. And then the last component on the expense side that was built into this budget is the increased utilization of residential services. So we have going to have to expand our catchment to support our CCBHC. So as we're seeing these individuals and we're partnering with other agencies, there's certainly not enough of them for us to partner with. So we certainly baked an expansion of residential services in the budget as well. So it's a relatively flat budget compared to the budget that you approved for fiscal year 24. It only represents a 3% increase, but that 3% increase budget year to budget year from, looking at strictly at the expenses is reflective of our FTEs associated with CCBHC, increased provider rates, increased utilization of residential services, increase in the direct care worker wages. And what else? Oh, and we also put in, because we want to take care of our staff, we also placed in there a holder for a merit increases of roughly 2.5% for our staff.
Can you just, go over the change in net position this year compared to the projected budget of how it seems more flush this year and fairly tight for next year? I just want the board to be aware of that.
Sure. So if you look there at the very bottom on page 5, you'll see that our change in that position of $142,000 were in the proposed budget. Okay, that's your revenue minus your expenses, and that's our change in that position. If you compare that to what we budgeted for a couple of columns to the left for fiscal year 25 of $1,053,000, it's much different. Part of the real driver behind a lot of that is on the revenue side, we're having to manage our CCBHC because our rate is going to drop, but we also increased our volume. Okay, but our expenses are not going anywhere. So basically, we're using up a lot more of that revenue that we're going to be generating because we're going to experience a reduction in our rates around CCBHC. But all in all, we're still going to end up in a budget neutral or a break-even position. But under fiscal year 24, which you approved that has that $1 million and changing that position, I'd like to remind the board that we have one of the highest CCBHC rates in the state. If not, I think it's either second or it is the highest at $513 per visit. We're anticipating that to drop by a pretty significant portion, roughly maybe 20%, is what we're anticipating. So we have to make up for that somewhere. And one of the ways to do that is increasing volume, but also making sure that we're managing expenses and being good stewards of that. So these vacancies and also requested new positions will not be hired unless the needs are there. So it will be a demand and meet demand as opposed to build it and hopefully they will come approach. Does that help?
Yes.
Any questions? Oh, sorry.
Does anyone have any questions for Andre at this time? Yes, Alice?
Is there anything we can do about this reduction in the, what we get per visit?
Well, I can't, that's not true. We do have some control over that because it's gonna be based off of our cost report downs. So we are maintaining a very close watch on our costs and making sure everything is appropriately allocated where it needs to go. If you remember, OnPoint, this predates me, but I'd like to think I've done my homework a bit on it. We went to the standard cost allocation model, the SCA. And so that's what's enabling us to accurately track our expenses and make sure that everything's in the appropriate categories. So when we pull those cost reports and begin to do our analysis around what do we anticipate rates to go to and what the state is going to be looking at, we're able to, kind of come close. Now we're not actuarials, but we're coming close. We're coming within target of what we're anticipating them. So we do have some controls over that because it's basically cost related. So we're applying all the appropriate costs to the services that are being delivered.
Oh, and I see in that sense. The price per visit isn't, we don't control that, but we can make sure that all the services that we provide, we get reimbursed for it to the best ability.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, it's interesting that you pointed that, could I just say something?
Yes, go ahead.
That I had highlighted that too, that, we've gone from 1.5 to we have almost 3 million, right? And then now it's 142, and I was thinking, that's probably the equivalent of having like $142 in your checking account, right? If you're not broke,
Yeah, right.
boy, but that's tight, right?
Yes.
So, which actually I'm happy with because, we know the need is never gonna abate or in nowhere soon. And so the best we can do to meet that with our, what we can offer is we certainly want to do that. And, I always hate giving, to me, $1 million is a lot of money to get back to the LRE. Now, maybe I'm just not, maybe it's probably the equivalent of maybe $1,000 in a regular person's mind. I don't know, but, so I guess I applaud this idea that we're planning to spend more than closer to what we expect we're gonna get without going over. And that, it's just gonna mean too, that, like you're saying, we're just gonna have to really keep a very tight watch on it. Are you feeling like because we're going to this electronic medical record, Crane, that's gonna help you to kind of keep track of
Oh,
the
yeah.
costs and everything?
Yeah, that will certainly help us to extract data more accurately. Because the system that we're on now, it certainly serves its purpose. But the move to this PCE product or PCE platform is going to help us to capture and then report on data and analyze it much more easily than what we're able to do now. So, yeah, it's a good move.
One more.
Yes, Alice?
This just occurred to me. So, okay, I'm taking my OnPoint hat off and I put my LRE hat on. And they talk all the time about these BT TEDs.
Chad's,
TEDs, right. So is our Crane gonna help us with that at all? Because, that seemed to be a real, significant change in what the rates we get, from Medicaid in particular.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be easier to extract out of the PCE platform than it is out of the current Streamline platform that we're on.
So we'll know sooner and there'll be less instances where we provide the service, but we haven't put in all the documentation to.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. And in addition to that, we'll be opening up an application that Microsoft offers called Power BI. So our quality department will have that tool at their disposal to be able to pull that type of data and conduct that reporting more easily. So we're just waiting on the go.
Any other questions? Thank you very
I
much,
have a
Alice.
question.
Yes, Jane?
The positions that you talked about, and can you explain just a little bit more about that, like that we're not filling them? Is that what you said, or?
So we currently have, so in this proposed budget for 25, so I'll have to give you a little context for 24. So 24, with current fiscal year, we've had some challenges with backfilling positions and we're hearing some vacancies. So right now, we have roughly 14 vacant positions. Okay, we're gonna carry those over, so we'll have like a total of 24 vacant positions that we put in the budget. But in addition to those 24 vacancies that we currently have, we're also requesting in this proposed budget 12 additional
Okay.
FTEs. Most of them are all clinical based, so to support CCBH services and also some grants. So what I cannot do for you right now is delineate, okay, which are grant and which are CCBHC. We can certainly get that, but they are clinical service based. So either they're going to be budget neutral because there's revenue offsetting them for services, SUD services or MAT services, things of that nature, or they're going to be CCBHC related with revenue that's going to be generated from their services.
So we do have open positions in the budget? or-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's.
Open and
Is there any other questions for Andre? Hearing none, thank you very much, Andre. The question before the board now is to vote. And does the board wish to wait until Kimberly gets back or no?
I didn't, and she didn't seem to have any questions about the budget, so.
Okay.
Right.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask for a vote for the budget, and when she gets in, I'm gonna ask her to cast her vote on that too. So we can go forward. Going, roll call, Ben Brookhouse,
Yes.
Mark DeYoung,
Yes.
I say yes. Jane Farrell,
Yes.
Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Karen Stratton,
Yes.
okay, and is there any further? for you?
Nope, I'm done.
Okay. Before we go to recipient rights, we'll ask Kimberly to cast her vote here a moment and then go on.
I'm sorry.
No, no. Don't be sorry.
What was the vote?
This is the vote for the 2025 budget.
Yes.
I thought that was what it would be, so, but I wasn't gonna speak for you, so. That, carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is the recipient rights report. Chairman Brookhouse, would you give us a short report?
Sure, yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Well, I had to wait for the rest of the recipients' right to make committee to get back anyway. We did not have a forum today, so we will have to ratify our votes in December when we meet with hopefully a fuller committee. There's some people excused absence. But on page 26 of the packet is where we were. The total allegations for June through August was 29, which is down a bit. I was told by the director that our 2023 allegations averaged 13 a month and 2024 is averaging 11 a month. So we are, I guess, technically 4 allegations shy of average for these 3 months. And then on the timeliness report, we are doing very well as far as keeping everything before the 90-day limit, which is set by the government. We did have the one that is in the greater than 90 days to closing. That was roughly about 6 months ago, and that was justified by the need for additional evidence because it was a complicated case. And so I was also told by the director that the state looks for a 95% or 98.
90 is full compliance and 95 is partial.
Okay. But we've got 1 out of 132, so we're well above the percentage that the state looks for.
Right.
The recipients, right, people are doing a good job. They completed the annual training for incident reporting with staff. And it was reported that the in-person was found to be more effective than the online. And then their next, they want to develop the examples of recipients' rights training, which is deadline to be determined. And another thing, our director and her team has done, and they've got recipients' rights stabilized to the point where we are now contracting with Van Buren on a case by case to help them out. And that will be left at case by case in case we get busy.
Thank you very much.
And then we also, to report to the board, we did review the budget for recipients' rights.
And the budget for recipient rights is sufficient?
It is, yes.
Right. Is there any questions for Chairman Brookhouse on recipient rights? Hearing none, thank you very much for your report this evening. Next is, do we have Stephanie Bendicoy here tonight? Stephanie, you have the floor for the LRE update.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I have a number of items that we are working on at the Lakeshore Regional Entity. We are at the end of the year. And so one of the things that we are working on is contracts. So at our board meeting, which is next week, Wednesday, our board will consist of several motions for our director to be able to execute contracts, anything over $50,000, we have our board approve. So we will be working on that. There are going to be specialty contracts for grants such as state opioid response, ARPA funding, things of that nature. We also will be having some contracts as well too. Just to give you a very brief update, I know I've shared with this board before, we've been working diligently with our CMHSP friends at getting a contract for next fiscal year for LRE and our CMHSPs. We still need a little more time. And so we are going to be extending the current contract by 45 days. And so that will also be on the motion for next week at our board meeting as well. And then we will continue to work with our CMHSPs to ensure that we get that contract to where everybody's happy. And then we'll go ahead and get that sent out middle of November then. The other item I wanted to mention is, I know I've shared with this group several occasions, we've done a lot of advocacy for our waiver slots. We did finally get notice from the department last week, and our region did receive 17 more slots. So that gives us a total of 676. I know that our director would like more. She will continue to advocate, but at the moment, that's where we stand right now with MDHHS. One other update I want to provide to this board that I shared last month was that Cherry Health was planning on becoming a CCBHC. For those of you that may or may not have awareness, they are mostly based out of Kent County, but they do have some satellite offices across our 7 counties in the region. They were planning on doing this just in Kent County. They did not receive their certification from the state. Therefore, they need to go back to the drawing board, if you will, make some changes. They're going to reapply for fiscal year 25. So at this time, they will not be a CCBHC, but we know they're going to try again. And I'm convinced that they will be able to join our region next year. So we look forward to that, and we will be helping them. But I did want to report that out. One other thing I wanted to mention is in our prevention world, we have our Talk Sooner campaign, and this month we are doing a campaign called Any Way You Slice It. Prevention Matters. And so this is geared for pizza parlors. And so if you were to go to the CD's Quick Mart in Hopkins, they are one of our partners. And if you were to purchase a pizza, you could potentially get a pizza cutter, unless they're all gone. I don't know if they're all gone, so don't go running there and say, Stephanie told me to get a pizza cutter. I have a couple in my office I can bring down if you need. But otherwise, there will be labels that are right on side of the box that just kind of talk about our Talk Sooner campaign and just information for parents on how to talk to their youth as it relates to drug trends. So we're excited about that partnership. And then the last thing that I do want to mention is that we did get information from MDHHS that we have our waiver audit. I know that was mentioned earlier. One of your staff is working very closely with us, and so we look forward to going through that audit and passing with flying colors like we always do. So that's just the tip of the iceberg, friends. I'm going to pause there and see if you have any questions.
Is there any questions for Mrs. Van Dukoy at this time? Yes, Mrs. Johnson.
Hi, Stephanie. On the agreement that you gave another 45 days to mid-November, if things don't come together, how many more waivers do we get? And I'm asking, like, isn't there a point in time we have to have an agreement, or can it go indefinitely without an agreement? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a great question. We are eager to have that agreement in place, and we will do our due diligence to have it done in 45 days. It is not my desire to extend it further than that, and I will work very hard to ensure that it does not. But ultimately, we do have a little bit of leeway. We could, if we needed to, as long as our CMH directors agree to it. We are almost there though with the contract. There's just probably maybe 5 more pieces we're still working through, just the language at this point, and it should be completed. To your point, yes, we do need to get a new agreement in place because we want to make sure that we're in compliance with all the rules that the state has prescribed to us. So we will get it done early in fiscal year 25.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions for Ms. Vanderkoy? Hearing none, thank you very much for your time this evening. We appreciate
Thank you.
your report. Next on the agenda is the chairman's executive committee report. We met on December 13th, and it was a good day. We had, there was no compliance updates that we needed to take care of. The CFAP update, the state's implementation of that continues to be on hold. We are working on the nearly final draft on the PIHP contract. The executive director, executive committee, members had related conversations as to the delivery of the board's resolution. There's a lot of positive comments back. We did it appropriately, authoritatively, but with kindness, and they heard it. They tabled that motion for further consideration. The TCAT task we've accomplished this evening, the budget, the approval of that, the approval of the contracts, and approval of the bills, things of that nature. We reviewed the meeting packet, and then we had the informal staffing update. The first annual recovery celebration is going to be Friday, September 27th from noon till 4 down on the riverfront. The PA2 funding for the Allegan treatment courts, where we were approved for up to $100,000 to fill in the gaps of treatment cost budgets for the Allegan treatment courts. So we're waiting on the details of those. And Mr. Whitty expressed gratitude for everyone that walked in the parade. We had a lot of staff there, myself, Mark Whitty was there. Had a great time handing out stress balls and candy, and really made an impact as we went by, because we had magic happens when parents talk to kids. So about substance abuse and about other issues. And so, and the two kids and the two children that we had in the back of the truck were like really excited, and that emotion sort of overflowed into the rest of us, so. But anyway, we had a good time.
So excited.
What?
Those were mine.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're always excited.
Yeah, they're always excited.
Well, they did an awesome job.
We tried to instill some like community, in them, like
Yep.
volunteering and things.
Well, it's all right that when towards the end, I lifted them up on the tailgate because they were
Yeah.
leg weary, so. We asked, any questions about the general fund from the executive board? We had brief, comments that Andre has already passed to you, and the, situations that we find ourselves in, and I appreciate the board approving this budget for the coming, fiscal year. And is there any questions for me on the executive committee report? Or any questions to the chairperson in general? Hearing none, thank you very much. And we will go on to the OnPoint Executive Director's report. Mr. Whitty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The report I have starts on page 38. I won't reread all 5 pages, but I'll just highlight a few things that I think are worth noting. First one is on the bottom of page 38, under the board section. We have received notice that the fall conference registration for Traverse City can be done now. And so please talk with Chairperson Dugan, Megan, or I if you're interested in more details. We'd be happy to facilitate your registration. It's on Monday, the 21st, and Tuesday, the 22nd of October. There is a board meeting on the evening of the 20th. But that's not formally part of the conference, so. The other thing, I'll just add, page 20 or 39. I've talked a little bit about, the funding from the, specialty port funding from the region. I just wanted to, again, sort of say exactly what it is we're trying to do there. Allegan County receives a certain amount of revenue each year from the excise tax that's collected on spirit alcohol sales from retail establishments. Not for bars, not restaurants, not beer, not wine, but spirit packaged alcohol sales. And so a small portion of that is returned to every county that has those sales. And there's a split relationship or percentage by which some amount comes in the name of Allegan County. It happens to be sent from our county commission, county administration, over to the LRE to hold. And then we, with the approval of the Oversight Policy Board that Commissioner DeYoung and Commissioner Story sit on, that group of people are who give approval to those dollars to be spent in Allegan County for the benefit of the people here. So because of what's happened with Medicaid over the years, with increasing numbers of people becoming eligible, with the influx of CCBHC dollars, other grants that's focused on opioid special needs and so forth, it's been hard to find needs that those dollars can meet because so many the other dollars that we've been treating are time limited, whereas these are not. So we've opted to use those dollars first. Now it's come to a point where we have a need where we can begin to apply those in this community, and it's to provide for funding gaps, if they exist, for the new specialty treatment courts that are being brought on board this fall. So what we've done is asked for and received approval for up to $100,000 of that money that's in Allegan's name to be used for the treatment expenses of those specialty court services so that the dollars of the court can be spent on court operations, which is appropriate. So thank you to Chairman or to Commissioner DeYoung and to Commissioner Story for their work in supporting that. And we await finding out from the county exactly what the shortfall will be, if any. But we have at least secured the fact that treatment will be available for those courts. And that's a good thing. That happens across the state. It's not unique to us, but it's a it's a new opportunity that we're taking advantage of here. Continuing on page 39, under the Allegan County opioid settlement, the county commission has acted on a recommendation that's been long in coming to begin to distribute some of the opioid settlement dollars that have come to counties as a result of the national settlements with pharmaceutical manufacturers and so forth. I think it's in the amount of about 174,000, was it, that the county commission approved for distribution. OnPoint is not the only party at the table in that, but we are a recipient of some of those dollars. And we will budget those in as we will normally after they are approved and distributed by the county in January. I believe that's when that happens. Yes. So just know that some of the long trail of making those dollars available to communities are finally happening in here in Allegan a lot faster than in much of the state, to be honest with you. So thank you to the commission for that as well. Item that follows that is worth noting too. We have, as of September 1, this was covered in the newspaper, executed a memorandum of understanding with the sheriff's office. The purpose of that is to commit to each other to increasingly work toward meeting the needs of people with mental health conditions in the interactions that happen with law enforcement, and that we will work on training one another on how to best interact and meet those needs so that we're not leaving it to the law enforcement community to meet the needs of people with substance abuse, mental health, and other kinds of needs. Because too often that has been left to the jails and so forth to meet, and that's not really the appropriate way for many people. So this doesn't commit to doing anything that we can't do now, but it points in a direction of working collaboratively. And this was done also with the endorsement of the Allegan County Chiefs Association. So all of the law enforcement officers that, all the departments that exist within the county are a part of what we're hoping to envelop over time. So thanks to both Sheriff Baker to, Chief Jay Gibson from Allegan County PD, as well as our own, staff, Melissa Potvin, who was involved in helping to try to, put a lot of work into how this will be. She and, now Captain Damfeld from the Allegan County Sheriff's Department, were participants in the national, CIT, called Crisis Intervention Training, conference in Indianapolis this past month. And so, you know, the messages are recent and, you know, fresh in their minds. And we'll continue to use that as an accelerator as we go through this process of gearing up how to better respond to the community. Eventually, you'll see such things, I think, as, our staff either riding along or riding separately with, law enforcement officers to respond in the community to people as they encounter them. And I just think that's just good for our community as well. Turning now to page 40, I think I want to zoom right down to the bottom on the state. Kathy Potter is with us, who attended on our behalf today with a number of people from Allegan County, the Walk a Mile event that was rescheduled from Thursday last week to today, of course, in conflict with our they say, what is it, rocking this, duds now? I don't know what they call it, but anyways.
We had 6 people in our group.
6 people.
It was a great day.
Thank you.
A lot of collaboration with the region and we connected with, we're sitting right next to a group from West Michigan, CMH and, Health West and the LRE stopped over and it was nice.
It's always a bit of a challenge, I'll bet, to have found legislators in Lansing, when they're out in the middle of campaign season, but, we had a great day for it.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for doing that on behalf today. Finally, I'll just say on page 41, if you can, cross off that first paragraph that talks about the contract, that was last month's, material I forgot to remove. About halfway down, we have an item that's under D, incarcerated persons waiver. Important development that, lets you know that over time, Michigan is intending to include in its Medicaid coverage services for individuals who are in jail about to come out. This has not been something that's been permitted under the Social Security Act at the federal level until recently, a waiver that allows for services for people in jail paid for by Medicaid. So this is a very promising development and one that I think you'll see allows for people to come out of incarceration with supports and services prearranged so that there's no need that's unmet once folks hit the street. So that's a very important development at the national level. You'll see it first happening at state prisons and with juvenile facilities, but then local county jails probably into fiscal 2028. So it's going to be a long time to see it develop, but the fact that the state required or submitted its request for that to be true in Michigan is a very, very significant development. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll leave it to any questions that the board may have, but appreciate the opportunity to share.
2 that I have that are technical in nature. Do we need to approve delegates to the Sunday assembly meeting?
Yes, we do. There's a member assembly meeting in September, I believe, so that would be appropriate, although we will have time next month,
1 week.
Okay, so,
because it's October conference.
yes. October 20th.
And
So
we
we
meet
have
on the 15th.
And our board meeting's on the 15th, so we should be able to make
So
that.
we will be looking for delegates, if you're interested in going, or Mark or myself as chair. I'm planning on going, so if you'd like to go, let us know. And, the first installment of the opioid settlement is 174,000, but this is the beginning of a 15-year period that is going to amount to over $2.8 million. So this would be an ongoing situation for 15 years where we can take care of the needs of individuals that have been snared by the opiate epidemic and give them care.
I will bring a report next month, Mr. Chairman, about the kinds of activities that this will support for OnPoint.
Okay. Appreciate that. All right, is there any other questions for, the executive director at this time? Hearing none, thank you very much for your report this, evening of Mr. Woody. We are now to the second provision of public comment on any topic now. Of 5-minute limit per speaker. Is there anyone in the boardroom that would like to address the board on any topic? Second call. Mrs. Hamilton, is there anyone online?
Is there anyone online that would like to address the board? Nope.
Thank you very much. With that, I will close the provision for public comment. Board member comments. We'll start over on this side and go around this way, so you don't have to be first, Jane.
Thank you. I was first last month.
Like to thank you guys for the card and prayers when I had my stroke. It's now both of my legs are bad, but thank you for showing that you cared. I appreciated that.
Oh, we're definitely with you in all aspects, Kimberly. Karen? Alice?
Just a couple. I just wanted to thank the board members who came and gathered for that special meeting that really was very helpful to me, knowing that I've got to go over there, but I've got you guys, y'all got my back. And I was really appreciative of that. And even though, it was a very, I guess, modest result, all we were able to do is postpone probably the inevitable. But we were able to do that, and I do want to just plug it in that it was Jim that said, and because I didn't know that I could, I mean, he just knows enough about procedure, that he knew what to do, and he said, can we table this? And I went, oh, yeah, let's table this, So anyway, that, at least we tabled it, and I do feel that two positive things came out of that even though we probably will have the nominations, the two CMHs are going to be probably the chair and vice chair. But that at least now I feel like Jim and Craig and I and other board members can kind of insist that they prove their objectivity, that, show me that you're voting or that you're doing your due diligence to be a LRE member and not just a member of your own CMH. And then the other thing that happened was just serendipitous. Part of our program that day was to have a Zoom presentation from the president of the CMHA, who is at a state level. And his name is Bob Sheehan. And he heard the whole discussion, he heard the resolution and all of that. And I forget who he made that comment to, but he let somebody of us here know that he basically was very pleased to see us do that. He said we did it in a very professional manner. And I feel also too, now that somebody at the state level knows what's going on. And I'm sure if that can only be helpful to us as we try to continue to work within this region.
Thank you very much for those comments. To make sure everybody understand, Robert Sheehan is the executive director of the Community Mental Health Association. The president is Carl Rice.
Oops. Okay,
So-
he's the CEO.
No, he's the executive director.
Director.
Yeah.
Mark, okay.
Yeah, he's the statewide mark,
Okay,
but I will,
thank you for.
when I'm there, I usually run into Robert at meetings and I will express your thankfulness for his comments. So, Jane,
I'm good, thank you.
Jeff, Glenn,
Thanks for the update, Alice. That's all I got.
Mark,
I'm just so glad to see Kim back again. Hope for continued progress.
Yes. Thank you.
Mrs. Johnson. And, you know, I always have a comment, but, one of the things that I get in a magazine is, cornerstones, and they have certain topics. And this particular one was about heart. And I was, like to go and give some of these things that were, given because it gives me strength in what I do. And, this quote is from Anne Frank, if you know her. Despite everything, I believe that people are really good at art. And the other one that I like the best is the best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. Quote unquote, Helen Keller. And with that, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mrs. Johnson. Do I hear support?
Support?
Support by Jane. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
You stand adjourned.